You're listening to Bedroom Beethovens, where notable music makers break down stories accompanied by songs and melodies documenting growth through their 10,000-hour journey. And me? Well, my name is Cello, your host.
I am a bedroom Beethoven.
Welcome. Michigan, I don't know what it is about you, but I can't stay away. Episode 115. Here we go. My guest this week is...
My name is Chris Orrick. I used to formerly known as the artist Red Pill. Was with Mellow Music Group for a long time, label, hip hop label, indie label based out of Arizona. Got my first start working with Apollo Brown in the group Ugly Heroes with Verbal Ken. Yeah, that's the gist of it.
Let me put the pieces of myself that I don't need in a closet with the lock. Let you take away the key. Let it be, let it wallow. Never let me look inside. Tell me later if I ask that those pieces of me died. So you took them, never told me, thinking I was better off. I'd forgotten they existed. You can't lose what's never lost. When it leaves, let it go. Just remember how you fought. Maybe later when it's quiet, you and I should have a talk. But she said, really, I just wanna dance. Good and evil match, perfect, that's a great romance. And listen,
no one confronts the abyss better than Chris Orrick, the Michigan X-Factory worker formerly known as Red Pill and one-third of the group Ugly Heroes, who rides effortlessly over the beats of previous podcast guest Apollo Brown, has spent the last decade documenting his life and giving us some context for the world around us. It goes further than stress over bills, nicotine and liquor compulsions. This is a deep dive into Chris's 10,000-hour journey that is more than an autobiography and a search for deeper revelation. If you're looking for new music, you're most likely going to be disappointed.
And you tell me that I'm nothing, that I fail. Then you question if I'm loyal. Had enough of that betrayal now.
Shout out to my new Patreons who joined this week, Brooke, Mark, and Sheila. I appreciate you guys joining the squad. If you'd like to join them, you can head on over to patreon.com/bedroombeethovens, throw a few ducats into the creative pool, and in turn, I send out new episodes early, special shout outs, and more. Thank you guys again. It really means a lot. The blue-collar MC, known as Chris Orrick, writes spiteful chants for the permanently scarred, death letters for the forgotten, surly hymns for charcoal lungs. Think Bukowski on an eloquent bender, swapping wine for whiskey, a notepad for a glowing LED screen, the racetrack for the recording booth. These are anthems for the irate, overeducated, and undervalued. Episode 115 with the great and powerful Chris Orrick, coming up now. And last week, your boy James Garden was on the podcast.
Oh, really? Dope. Nice. Yeah, man. He's that is one of my longest friends in the music shit for sure. I mean, that's been man, it's got to be 14, almost 15 years now. I've known James. So
he told me to ask you about touring and crunchy peanut butter.
Yeah, if you want to start with that story, we can real quick. It's not that entertaining, but we went on tour. I got offered an opportunity to go on tour with Murs in 2015, and I'm pretty new to. I mean, I had toured before, but not like that, not a full wide U.S. tour, and I needed a DJ and a friend to help drive and everything. So I brought James with me, who's much more than just a DJ or whatever, and help got to help drive. But it was good source. And I went shopping just to get some basic shit for the road to try to attempt to not eat fast food all the time and stuff. And I'm like a people pleaser kind of person, so I'm in the store and I'm like, peanut butter and jelly, that's easy, or at least peanut butter sandwich is easy. And I'm a creamy peanut butter fan, but I'm like, I had this like moment of anxiety, like, well, shit, what if James, I don't know what he likes. I don't know, he might like crunchy. And so for whatever reason, I was like, man, I think I saw somebody on like Twitter talking about how you were like lame if you like, this is how messed up my brain is. Like they were like lame if you like creamy peanut butter. So I was like, what if I'm a total nerd? And I know James well enough to know it doesn't matter. So I bought the crunchy peanut butter and we're eating this shit for like 2 weeks on the road now. And I finally brought it up to him, like, do you like crunchy or creamy better? And he's like, creamy. And I'm like, cool. So we've just been eating this shit neither of us likes every morning with crunchy peanut butter banana sandwiches that no one is enjoying. And I did it out of some weird fucking anxiety of not being cool enough to know which peanut butter style is the best. So that's a window into my mind.
That's funny, man.
So, and my anxieties.
I like that. I like that. And I mean, that's the one story that he pulled out of the hat and was like, "Oh, Chris is going to be on the podcast next week. Definitely ask him about that."
So that's my neuroticism showing through. So,
well, I've had on a bunch of your label mates and friends. I personally I've been a fan for years. I own your music on vinyl, but I never considered you for the podcast because I didn't think you were a producer. I remember I had the Lasso on. And I was like, well, I want Chris on, but I don't think he produces. But then I came across your old South by Southwest tapes. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you did a little behind the board stuff on that.
Yeah, I did a little behind the board stuff on. I got a record, like my first. I mean, I had a bunch of like kind of shit that I put together beforehand, but probably the first main project that I put out myself was in 2010, called "Please Tip Your Driver," which was a 10-track record that I produced everything on it except for 2. So I had eight productions credits on that one. I produced some stuff from the South by Southwest stuff. I did 4 tracks off "Look What This World Did to Us." Yeah, I mean, that was kind of, producing for me was more of like a out of necessity type thing, just not being able to find certain sounds that I was looking for specifically, so I fell into it doing that. I mean, just really wanting exactly what I was looking for and not having anybody that I could figure out how to do it. So
I mean, even from a young age, you were pretty motivated. You were in band and choir in elementary school, which for me is amazing because I didn't think extracurricular activities even opened up until middle school.
Yeah, I was. I played a saxophone. My dad played saxophone when he was in high school and or through high school and middle school. So he had this old sax laying around, actually at my grandpa's house, and I decided I wanted to do it. I mean, I was always really infatuated with music from a young age. It was the thing that I loved the most out of anything. I mean, so I wanted to be in choir, wanted to be in band. It ended up, when you come from like a house that, my mom, my story is with my mother being an alcoholic, my dad was working a lot. We ended up not being able to do it as much because it required a lot of travel, shit like that we just didn't have the resources to make happen. So I ended up dropping out of it pretty early, but it always stuck with me. And then, I got into high school and it very lightly dabbled with like, drums and guitar and bass, tiny little bit of keys. But, I definitely don't consider myself a musician.
But your grandfather was well off. So why and how did all that Wurlitzer machine money not make it to generational wealth? Why didn't it get inherited by your father so you could kind of feel the effects of it and you didn't have to drop out? I go on eBay. I see one machine going for like $6,000.
Yeah, so that's actually on my mom's side of the family. And that was my great grandfather on my mom's side of the family. My grandmother's father. They were big, man, in the Detroit area. It was the Angot distribution company. They had it's amazing that. I feel like maybe I've talked about it. I must have talked about it before. I don't even remember really talking about this much before in interviews. But yeah, they were the main distributor of Wurlitzer jukeboxes and a lot of coin-operated machines in general in the Midwest. I mean, you can go back like old Billboard magazines from the early '60s. They announced that that the daughter of Carl Angot had her first child, Jody, which was my mother, like a birth announcement in Billboard magazine. They had a lot of money, man. They had a ton of money, and there were some shadier like connections that I still haven't really been able to fully flesh out, and a lot of people have in the family that would have known have either passed on or not around anymore, for whatever reason. A lot of the money I think got squandered by my great grandpa's kids, I guess my great uncles. So I don't know where all that money went, man. I really don't, because it would be nice. Probably be a different conversation I'd be having right now if it was still around.
When you moved to Howell into a house, is that the same grandfather on your mother's side who owned it that your dad lived in?
That house we rented. The house before that, we rented that also. The house in Redford, right outside Detroit, was originally my great grandmother's from my dad's side. Then she ended up having health issues as she got older, had a stroke, ended up in a nursing home, and my dad moved in, and my grandfather owned the house, and he paid him rent, and just beyond a bunch of money issues, and part of it my dad's fault, part of it whatever, but part of it being my mother with her alcoholism issues. They had a falling out and kicked us out of the house. And then that's how we moved to Howell. But yeah, that the music side is on my, Wurlitzer stuff is my mother. The grandfather who kicked us out of the house is my dad's dad, who passed away a few years ago.
Well, I was wondering, like, so if your grandfather owned the house, did he, or on your dad's side, if he owned that house free and clear, why would he pay your dad, or why would he make your dad pay rent? Because I think he was trying to find his footing. He was doing stuff with cell phones. He was trying to get like a business off the ground. And I think that probably would have helped him if he didn't have to worry about rent, that kind of breathing on his neck.
Yeah. So my grandfather was one of the cheapest bastards that ever lived. And again, I think, looking back on it, if, you talk to my dad about it, I think that there are things where, he looked out really. So what really set it all off, and I don't know that I've really told this part of the story, but what really set it all off is my dad, not to like get too messy in all the weeds, but my dad was working for this dude doing deliveries, like basically like a dairy distribution company that he got a job. He was doing that in the mornings, like really early. I mean, I remember he would get up at like 2, 3 in the morning, have to be down at the shop to load the trucks, get out on the road, whatever. And then he'd come home for a few hours and go to a cell phone shop that he was trying to build, turn into something. He'd stay there till 10 or 11 at night, just, as they were starting the business. And the guy that my dad was working for on the dairy route, his wife died in a like freak car accident. And during this time, this dude was like, hey, I got to take a break. I got kids, my wife, dealing with this whole situation with my wife passing. Can you run the route for me? For however long it was supposed to be like this indefinite thing, and ended up being I don't know if it was a few months or whatever it was. He ended up getting a huge insurance settlement, the guy that my dad was working for, because of the accident with the life insurance or whatever. To thank my dad for that, he paid for most of me and my 6-person family to go on a trip to Disney World. And he was, to just say thank you. He'd gotten like $250,000 or some shit. So he was like, thank you. You ran my business for this long. I appreciate it. Here's how I want to say thank you. He paid for like a hotel, all the Disney tickets and all the shit. And I think my dad had to pay for like, just food or whatever, little expenses. And my grandmother had gotten sick, but not like really, not like something bad, but she was in the hospital for a couple of days. And my grandpa called and was like, you got to come home. Your mom's in the hospital. And my dad was like, if it's not dire, he's like, I'm trying to figure out and my grandpa was already pissed off at him because he owed him money. And I think my grandfather could not understand that somebody had, out of the kindness and, of their heart, paid for this. So he's like thinking my dad's down there spending money that he owes him for rent, which whatever, like you said, I can't imagine doing it to my own son. And then on top of it, my grandmother being, hospitalized for a few days, and that all hell broke loose. And that's what set it off that, we had to get out. He was tired of my dad's shit, whatever. And that was, that went on for a few months. And then we ended up finally finding a place. I saw him one more time a few years later, and then never again.
Been coming down for a long time. The Friday home.
Wow, that's kind of funny that a little bit of good fortune can happen to a particular family member, and it doesn't sit well with the other family members, and it results in wow.
When you think of the standard American dream of the 60s and 70s, he was living that.
And maybe it's just self-reflection, but I look around and know I've been affected. And is it me, but does it seem I never knew you? Cause when we speak, I think the past is all we have, and we're past it and we change, so just pass another glass.
Yeah, it's not like he needed the money. He was just he was cheap as hell, and didn't, just kind of one of those tough dads, I guess. They had an all right relationship growing up, but it's not like he was whatever, but he was really strict, really tough on him. And then I don't know if he just felt like my dad didn't live up to his standards or whatever the hell happened. I'll never know.
And you decided at one point to work with your dad. Was that so you could manage your rap schedule and work and have flexible hours?
Yeah, I had always because my dad did basically this dairy route and this wholesale food distribution shit since he worked since I was a kid. When the cell phone business failed, he went into this. He had a few months of really struggling, bad shit going on, and then with depression and financial insecurity, whatever. And then he ended up getting this full-time job doing that through another guy. So yeah, I would work summers with them, since I was 12 years old. Summer job, go down, make some money in the city while I was living in Howell. I went off to college, went to Michigan State, and then my first year at Michigan State, or right before my first year at Michigan State, was when my mom passed. And then my dad lost his job right after that. And so he went on his own to build his own little business, doing the same thing, wholesale food distribution, just delivering to like diners and shit, Coney Islands in the city. And so when I got out of school, I worked at this plant for a few years. But then when I got the opportunity to do Apollo Brown with Ugly Heroes, I decided to, try to dive headfirst into the music side of it and, work part-time with that because I was getting a little bit of music money. I was able to kind of scrape shit together enough where, work a few days for my dad. But if something happened where, okay, I got a tour coming up, or so it was, really lucky to have that opportunity. I mean, looking back on it, I don't even know how, it's not like I think my dad was paying me like $200 a week or some shit, but it was cool. I mean, it made it real simple for me. Very lucky, very fortunate in that sense that I had that, to be able to put some money there, make some money from music. And when, tours or an interview popped up, most jobs won't put up with that shit. I can't get a call that I got to be on, get a call that they want to feature us on like the Rat Fix with Sway and just be like, I'm out. You know what I mean? But my dad understood it. He was like, go for the shit. So
that's all. I'm glad to hear he was supportive. I was starting to think like, oh, okay, well, Chris is a Michigan State graduate, and maybe because that is a good moment in the family, it would create more friction, kind of like the Disneyland trip. Like if something good happens, maybe you're one of the few Orricks that actually has a graduate degree, and maybe that would cause us some friction. And maybe now, I'm going to work at the small machine shop, but I'm also going to pursue rap, and maybe that ruffles some feathers.
No, it's totally opposite, man. My dad was 100% supportive of it. I mean, he was like, you gotta live, you gotta do it. I mean, the funny thing with him, and another weird thing about it, why he understood it was, he was not like amazing, but he was a kid. He worked on golf courses, and he was a pretty excellent golfer. I mean, he won and played an amateur champion, tours and shit around Michigan and in the area. He had an opportunity to go to University of Houston on an academic scholarship, but it was because the golf, team or whatever was interested in working with him. And he turned it down to just get married and do, he didn't want to be that far from Michigan from home. So he turned that down, and he kind of always had that, like, probably nothing would have come of it, but he always had that feeling like, what if I had gone after this, done something and tried to, make my dream turn into something instead of just settling. So he always had my back. Like, you got to go do this. We'll figure it out. His main thing was you got to get a degree, because that was, everyone his age was like, you got to get a degree. And then I don't give a shit what you do after that. At least you have a plan B, something to fall back on.
So you equated your own value and for what you do with your music, and you're hell bent on touring the U.S. at this stage, and you were not going to be happy unless that happened. But you got to see much of the world.
Yes.
But how's the pandemic made you kind of pivot your thinking at this stage in your career? I know you're not kind of focused on music, but even if it was, like, I got to ask about your mental health, because you mentioned your mom. In 10 years, you're going to be around the same age your mom was when she passed away.
Yep.
And I know you somewhat struggle and deal with issues the same way a lot of your family members do. So have you been able to successfully break the cycle, or are there still some good days and still some bad days?
Oh, there's absolutely bad days. I mean, there's good and bad, but like, what happened really was things were already, the writing was on the wall for, being able to make money consistently for music for me. I mean, my record sales were not doing well for any number of reasons. It could just be that it was never going to do well. It could have been, the name change was a setback for sure. It was hard. People have such, short attention spans anyways. To this day, I get people, I'll see a YouTube comment like, this is like Red Pill. This is who, like the guy that was before, and now he's Chris Orrick. People still catching on years later. So there were a number of things that were happening, and the records just weren't selling. Mello couldn't, no animosity whatsoever towards, Mike over there. It just became, got to a point where paying, what he was paying, it wasn't making, it never really made financial sense overall, but it had been a couple years of like, something's got to give here, or, we're going to have to work out a different way of doing things. And so that was already kind of on my mind late 2019 when I put out the record. I Read That I Was Dead with the Lasso. And then, Mike at Mello basically let me know, like, I'm down to put out music with you in the future, but for now, this is kind of the end of what we can really do in terms of like advances and shit like that. The beginning of last year was like, man, I was in a rough place because I didn't know what to do. It was like, I can go get a full-time job driving a truck. I can, maybe I can do this and that. Yeah, the pandemic starts, and I'm like, now it's like, now there's that economic anxiety, the pandemic anxiety, all the shit that's happening all at once. And I mean, it's scary. I mean, I'm looking at my dad, I was working, like I said, making a couple $100 a week from him. And I'm wondering, he's barely able to afford to pay me that right now. Now all these restaurants are going to shut down. Now, are we going to, me and my dad were having conversations like, if we got to go get jobs at the grocery store, we'll do it. We're going to have to do what we have to do because we don't know what's going to happen. It turns out that the opposite really happened, because the restaurants that we do are mostly, in inner city neighborhoods in Detroit, and a lot of people rely on those restaurants as their main source of food. And then when you had the unemployment benefits kick in, the extra food assistance benefits, everything that all was happening, people had money we're making more money than they ever made. I mean, the same with even my girlfriend. I mean, she got let go for a little while and was making double what she made before she had working, when you get to add that $600 in and everything. So his business actually took off a lot, my father's, and it was able to figure it out. And then I found another job, this gig working for a organization based in Portland, doing like mostly administrative work, but it's all online. And so for me, it's actually been the most financially stable year of my adult life, which is weird. But it's also meant that I, have not really had music on my mind. And then all the what ifs and the regrets. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I was already getting to a point where music was like, wasn't really sure. And then it just kind of, evaporated overnight.
I just want cats to be happy. I want my father to be happy. I want my brothers to be happy. I want my friends to be happy. My generation to be happy. For Mellow to be happy. Ill Poetic and Charlie to be happy. And maybe I can find some happiness.
Well, I did want to explore that a little bit. If you're on a label like Mellow, and I'll use Apollo Brown, who's been on this podcast as an example, where Apollo Brown makes profit for the label. So Michael's business model at Mellow Music Group is to fund the smaller projects from the profits of the bigger releases to where their smaller fish on the label are being supported. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you come out with 3 albums that Mike likes and you're not making profit for the label, do you want to keep putting out music for art's sake? As you approach your mid-30s, you've been making records since you were 14, 15 years old, which means you've been focused on this craft for 20 years. Maybe you're ready for an album to go gold or platinum. Maybe you don't want to be that small fish on the label that's just, because Apollo Brown, he's kind of a staple. He's not going anywhere. So unless he reaches out and says, let's do a third Ugly Heroes album, you're going to be stuck in the same position, I think.
I think that part of what happened, I had already been creeping up anyways. Like, there's the pressure and like the feeling of like, this dude, Mike at Mellow has put a lot into me, a lot of belief in me, and I'm not living up to, the standards of sales. I do think he felt like I didn't have enough output, which I think I'd probably argue with him about that. I put out it's just a new era of music where like, I don't know how old you are. I grew up when I was listening to music, like you were lucky to get a record every 2 to 3 years from your favorite artist. I mean, maybe the indie guys were starting to do it a little bit more, but for me, I'm thinking like, that's why my records got shorter, honestly. I mean, I'm the type of person that like, I need some time to breathe in between records, because I need, my music is so like focused on my life, and my life was stagnant. So my music started feeling stagnant. I started feeling like, what am I contributing right now that I haven't already said, that I haven't already been through? So the creative side of it becomes to feel like a burden. I know I'm not reaching, it's a little easier to feel more motivated. I feel like when okay, my records are selling, whatever. So it doesn't, you know what I mean? And then it all was just kind of this thing of like coalescing into, knowing I'm probably getting not dropped by the label, but not getting the financial support. And again, no animosity whatsoever. It is what it is. That's just business. I mean, that he put more money into me than he should have, frankly. It was getting bad for my mental health, really, really bad for it. It just felt like I'm stuck. Did I fuck up? Should I have ever gone after music? Should I, I got, my younger brothers, the ones that are just a few years younger than me, that, they live they got corporate jobs. I mean, they're, they went to school and became engineers. They're doing good, and obviously there's good and bad, grass always greener type shit. But it's just getting to a point where it's like, fuck, man, like feeling like I don't regret what I did, but could I have done it differently? Have a little bit more financial stability, you know what I mean? Like not try to experiment so much, do the things that I thought would just be, that I knew would sell, instead of having to, try to do something different just to do it. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you said that, because I want to use Murs as an example, because you went on tour with Murs, and I remember there was a stop on that date where there was only like 15 people in the crowd, and Murs is a veteran,
Mm-hmm.
and in the last 18 months, even with 250,000 Instagram followers, he's put out 5 projects, which is how many projects you've put out in 6 years. So when I look at it, do you relax like, damn, do I want to release a new album every 4 months? Do I want to run a Patreon? No. Do I want to have merch? Do I want to tour my ass off just to have 15 people at some of the venues? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a better way.
Maybe I'm not built for that shit. You know what I mean? Like for me to say that when like a guy like Murs, who has been doing this shit professionally for long, twice as long as my career or more, my little blip of a few years. But like, yeah, I mean, it's just a lot, man. And to adapt and change to something where I just didn't know that I had obviously like my online social media presence is there's some things to be desired. I'm not very good at it. I tend to use it when I've been drinking or when I'm in a bad mood, which is the worst way to ever use social media, and I can't stop myself, and that's why I have limited it and deleted a bunch of shit. And, it's like, it's not good for me. And I think, just wondering, if that constant, like, I'm not putting out a record every 4 months, and kudos to Murs for doing it. I mean, he is an incredible artist, incredible workhorse of a person, and, everything that he does. I mean, I respect the hell out of him, but I can't do it, man. There's no way. I don't have enough to say, to be honest.
Right, because like you could have someone like Bubba Sparks who starts off making music about mental illness and substance abuse, but because he's on a major label, he will always end up with Miss New Booty, and his career dies. That's the cycle of a major label, and you got to be careful, because as you navigate the music scene, you don't encounter people that want to change who you are. Because Instinctive Drowning, Michael at Mellow Music called that the album of your lifetime. So let's take Eminem as an example. Once he tells his story of his mom on drugs and him failing as a father and the trailer parks, well, now he's going to have songs like Ass Like That and him dressing up like Batman and rapping about Christina Aguilera's tits, and he's going to run out of his life to talk about. And if you turn in the album of your lifetime, Out to Sea follows that. And that's a tall order. Maybe Michael at Mellow was worried that maybe after you turn in 4 to 5 projects, you've said everything you have to say, and now the Miss New Booty phase of Chris Orrick's career starts, and it's a party.
Yeah, it's I definitely don't think I was going to do a Miss New Booty, but yeah, I mean, it is, that's what it is though. You feel like I felt, like I said, my life itself had felt stagnant, so I'm like, I feel like I'm forcing it. Like, how many more times I'm going to write about, being a lazy drunk, you know what I mean? Like, and truthfully, I mean, part of that is like, that's the reality of my life, that, I don't know that I have a work ethic, but obviously mental health and, the bouts of substance abuse issues have certainly affected that, and affected my ability to stay on top of shit that I should have been on top of at points. And, what kind of fed the music was also the thing that, it was also hurting me at the same time. So I'm wondering if that was more of like a, self-fulfilling prophecy kind of shit, or, and yeah, it's always been in the back of my mind that, if I got to keep this up, I mean, I'm not gonna last long. I know too many people in my life that have left way too soon because of it. So,
well, you grew up watching Atmosphere and Rhymesayers. When you found out about Dem Atlas and Prof, do you think the label handled it correctly?
To me, no. I mean, I think that especially in this day and age, like, I think that there are ways as artists and, just human beings that shit can be handled differently. And I think people want to protect what they have. And maybe they don't feel like, I mean, I don't know the inner workings of it. I'm not in the Minneapolis scene. I know that I'm 100% in the mind frame of believing women. So when you look at someone like Psalm 1, who is leading the, hashtag boycott Rhymesayer shit on Twitter, I got to believe her. And I got to believe that, what she is going through, what her experience is, and those are true. And then you look at, not to name names, but like, POS was on one of my favorite artists, and I have him on a record. We got to do collaborate with him on Instinctive Drowning, and then to see someone like Dessa, who's obviously a very good friend of his and colleague in music or whatever, saying the shit's got to change and things are not what we see. I got to believe that those people know best. Those people know those people around those people, and if they're uncomfortable with it, if they see the red flags and now see the shit burning, yeah, I don't know, and I don't know what. Clearly, I'm not in charge of Rhyme Sayers, so I don't know what I would have done or whatever. But I think there could have been more. From the little that I've seen, it looks like some of it was a bit performative in terms of, here's a statement, sorry, we'll try to do better, and then that's where it ended.
Yeah, POS had responded to the allegations against Fundo, his DJ, saying that, Fundo is someone that I always knew to be a little sleazy, but someone I also thought to be harmless. And I think that's kind of the problem, that kind of men will ignore and discredit women, but won't hold their friends accountable. But look, I gotta be real. I also see the POV of a struggling artist. Like if you saw Apollo Brown cheating on his wife on tour, treating women like trash, would you jeopardize Ugly Hero's overall success based on a moral compass?
Well, yeah, 100%. And I think for me, it's of course it's easy to say yes. I would say that, but yeah, you don't know. Of course you don't know because you're not there and you don't know. And I think abusing women, yes. To me, it's like it's not my. Who am I to go tell if? And this has never ever happened. I'm not even just saying it, but I've never seen it. Just for the hypothetical that you presented, like, would it be for me to go to Apollo's wife and say, hey, I don't know. That's not really my deal. That's between them. But abusing women, I would be both. I would be extremely uncomfortable either way. You know what I mean? Like if I saw a friend of mine, and I consider Apollo a friend, being a dirtbag, it would be something that I would say, hey, I would tell him to his face. I don't know if I would go to run and tell on him to his wife, but abusive shit, that's a line that would not be acceptable to me.
Absolutely.
100%, no matter what. But I do understand what you're saying, though, that like, I think it's just so normalized. I think that behavior from men is so normalized that you can just brush it off as, whatever, Fundo's just a kind of a sleazeball, but he's my buddy. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's where the breakdown and what needs to happen is we need to, as men, call out other men and say, hey, that, like what you're doing is fucked up, instead of it just being like this, oh, that's Fundo, or, oh, that's how he is. Like that, to me, that's not, I hope that's changing. And I hope that decision-making ability becomes easier as time goes on for people because of awareness like this and, the changing of the tides type shit.
Well, now that I know more about Chris Orrick, I want to repay the favor by telling you something that you may not know about the other Chris Orrick, the one who inspired your 2019 album with the homie Lasso. So what's funny is Chris Orrick died 2 years ago, yet people are still signing his obituary. And a woman signed it a few months ago. And I'm thinking that she did it so that the immediate family wouldn't check an obituary from 2 years ago. Why would you? So I get why she's doing it. But this woman shared a fond memory of him a couple months ago, saying that she enjoyed watching his favorite movie. And the plot of this movie reads as followed. In 1951, at a small California inn, a couple have an affair. And instead of writing it off as a one-night stand, the pair decide to meet at the inn every year for a romantic retreat away from their respective spouses and families. In the decades that follow, together they develop a level of love and intimacy that exceeds the ones found in their own marriages. And I think that's interesting that a movie called Same Time Next Year is your favorite movie, especially if you were born in 1945. She said she watched it 6 times with him, that she enjoyed taking rides with Chris Orrick in his convertible Jaguar in the early 80s and getting milkshakes together. And I quote, "He was a special person, very intelligent. He will never be forgotten by me." And that's not the craziest part. Here's where it gets crazy. So Susan, whose last name I will withhold, and her husband owned a Japanese steak restaurant, a 4-star diamond hotel, and a AAA Italian restaurant. They were business people. They sold all of their assets for $8 million a decade ago to set up for retirement. So she was not single. She was in a long-term marriage with kids and owned businesses. So there is no way that she had a friend that she would just drive in Jags with and watch old movies and drink milkshakes with. That is an affair. And Chris Orrick, the cryptozoologist, the recluse, the introvert, the weirdo, was not as vanilla as it seemed.
That's nuts, man. Man, this is a part of the story. I haven't even been able to tell anybody this. Like years, like 2007 or 2008, I found this out. So this dude, I put this record out, and obviously, the press release and everything pops up, and I get a message from a dude named Peter Orrick, and he's like, "Hey, that's my uncle." And I'm like, okay, that's kind of crazy. He's like, yeah, man, I actually just stumbled on your music and realized that this record was inspired by him. And that's my uncle, goes by your name or whatever, or your namesake. And I'm like, that's insane. And I started talking to him a little bit and realized in like 2007 had sent me, I look back in previous messages, he had sent me a message in 2007 just saying that he knew that he was looking up other people with the last name Orrick on Facebook and found me. And that he was like, and it's funny because my uncle's name is that. It was in 2007. I didn't remember this at all until he fucking sent me the new message, and I was able to go back and see old ones. So the connection, some odd, eerie thing. I mean, I guess it's not that unusual, but it was like going back and seeing that with the other kind of, just weird, eerie, things that we had already kind of seen with the, similarities in the stories. And then to find out that his nephew had tried to email or send me a Facebook message. Yeah, I mean, years and years before I even put this record out was pretty strange.
Dude, my last name isn't Orrick, and I spent 30 minutes down that rabbit hole.
Right. Yeah, man. It was he is an interesting dude, man. I mean, and it all started with that. I mean, just getting tagged in that tweet that said it, Chris Orrick, not the musician, has died. And everything started from there.
Yeah. Peter, if you're listening to this, don't get mad at me, but the salary of a cryptozoologist can be as high as $238,000 a year. I think he was secretly balling on the low, banging millionaire married women in the spare time in his convertible Jag.
That sounds very, from the little that I've known, that's what it seems like. And if Peter somehow does listen to this, I owe him a conversation. He wanted to talk. He said he had more information he wanted to share with me, but I haven't gotten back to him yet, but I need to.
Yeah. So. The lesson for today is if you meet someone named Chris Orrick, buy them a coffee, pick their brain. They're guaranteed to have some stories.
Right. Yeah.
So where does 2021 leave you? I know Charlie Beans has a record label. I'm sure you could join. Maybe you could continue with Mellow. Maybe you could start your own label. Maybe you're just a free agent and you're enjoying being a free agent. You could even thinking about never releasing music ever again. So, I'll give you an opportunity to kind of just get whatever you want off your chest regarding the music industry and your life, and you have the floor.
Yeah, I think that at least musically, I don't really have any plans right now to, do anything. I don't have any releases in the works. We hope we can do another Ugly Heroes record, maybe a final installment type thing. That has been mentioned, but we got to make things work. When or if I decide to get the urge or itch or whatever to make another record, I hope it comes out with Mellow. I mean, like I said, we didn't leave on a bad note. I don't know. There was a little bit of brief shit that it was mostly in my head that I, have worked out, and we've had a couple conversations about it. But that he basically said that doors always open. So, and I technically still owe him a record anyways. So on my last contract. So if it comes around, it comes around. But for now, man, I'm really just trying to, like everyone else, just try to get out of this fucking pandemic and hopefully get some normalcy, and life can be a little bit smoother soon. Getting vaccines going, if whatever however you feel about that. But either way, I'm just looking forward to seeing a little light at the end of the tunnel. Hoping, we can get back to some normal shit. And then I think when the dust settles with all of that, I maybe return to thinking about music. But yeah, I mean, right now, man, I'm focused on, family, trying to be healthier, physically and mentally, and, just doing what everyone else is doing, man. Just living through one of the weirdest periods of our lifetimes. So.
Definitely weird. And if I can add to the rumor mill, when Apollo Brown was on this podcast, he said he never does sequels. But he did do an Ugly Hero sequel, and for the first time in his life, he actually thought the sequel was better than the first album. So I think he would definitely, be interested in doing a trilogy.
The interest is there, man. It really is just a matter of just making it work for everyone's time. I mean, I know, Verbal's got his whole coffee empire going on, and I know he's had struggles with that, with the pandemic. So he's got that going on. He has like 8 million kids now, so he's dealing with that. So yeah, man, it's just a matter of time, dude. I mean, those guys are brothers for life. I've had some of the most fun experiences of my life. Got to see, a ton of Europe and beyond with them, and it's I would love to do it, but just a matter of timing.
Well, Chris, I appreciate your time, and that's not a throwaway line. I generally do appreciate it, and I hope that 2021 is it's a banner year for your personal and professional life. I really do. So I appreciate you stopping by, and there's always a place for you here.
Well, man, I appreciate it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. When you hit me up about an interview, I was kind of like, we talked before we started. I didn't know what I really had to say, but maybe you got me a little bit thinking about music in a way I haven't in a couple years now. So maybe this will be the spark. We'll see. But I appreciate it.
On your next album, if there's a thank you section, I want my name first mentioned.
You got it, man, for sure.